Yo, friend SB here. It's time for some character reviews. This will be an end of season reflection of the new character releases we've had to try and paint a picture of the direction of the game and the quality to expect in the future. This season we've had releases for Tamaki, Assault Endeavor, and Technical Mirio. Don't know what will be coming next season, but we should be getting the trailer this weekend. It would be great if you could watch and support the tournament finals this weekend if it's convenient, as I've got multiple friends participating in it. But anyway, let's get on with this video. In this video we'll be focusing on the quality of design and implementation of these three characters, being Tamaki, Assault Endeavor, and Technical Mirio. As well, we'll be looking into how well they were implemented. We'll be breaking it down into what's good, what's bad, and what could be better. The better is more of an exploration into possible improvements, rather than a specific solution. And to help with that exploration, I've decided to dive into the game's files and make some mods with the purpose of creating more ideal versions of each character with what options I have available. So, let us begin. Tamaki's quirk is Manifest, which gives him the characteristics of things he eats, especially seafood. So in his gameplay design, that is realized by giving him a lot of variety in tools, which is the swordfish, which is the octopus squid hook thingy. We've got another tentacle move, we have stealth, and then also big fuck you cannon. And he has a flying move, which implies that he ate a bird. There's some like melee stuff with like the claw, the seashell. Basically the point is that he has variety. And so in game he's able to poke people from afar, if it works. He can hook people in, and he's able to work all these things together in order to make cool combos. One of the bread and butter combos you'll find is going to be the hook, melee, flight, beta, something like that. And that is really cool. This is part of why he is a strike character, because it's about giving power to those combos. The beta is of course a melee attack. He does need to get up close, and the lunge helps him to do that. So that's going to be his close range skill. His alpha is of course like mid-range with both the swordfish and the hook. And the cannon is very much a long range move. So each move has variety and different effectivenesses at different ranges, but also works very well together in combination. And I think that was a pretty cool design. But getting into detail about this effectiveness, Alpha does some damage at certain range, but right at the tip of the range it does bonus damage. So it goes from 65 damage all the way up to 105. And tipper mechanics is also something that exists in Smash Bros. Because Marth is a sword fighter character, and he gains bonus damage on the tip of his sword. This is possibly one of the main inspirations for this mechanic. Using the hook is pretty good. One of the things that I find to be especially interesting about it is if you're moving around and you're hooking people, you kind of keep up momentum. But if you do hit someone, it pauses your momentum to freeze into the air, which makes it very easy to do combo attacks. Because, you know, if you're constantly moving, you're moving outside of their range. But if you hit them from the air, that freeze makes it very simple to combo off of it. So you don't just get penalized from being in the air. He kind of works at all sorts of positions, which is good because he has a aerial movement skill. When you hit someone with the beta, you go into stealth, which I think is a underlooked mechanic, and I think that's quite interesting, especially, you know, you gain additional movement speed while in stealth. This is also something that they've given to Froppy. And so it is pretty underutilized, but I do like that there is some additional mechanic to it. As I have said in the past, I like it when moves have multiple functions, and special action, of course, is that as well. Because not only is it very good for using it in combos, but it is, you know, very good at giving you an option for vertical mobility, which you can use for maneuvering around the map. Something many characters have, and I think it makes sense that Tamaki can have it as well, because as we say, a lot of what he does is about versatility. And with Tamaki, we also have a function that is very unique, in that whenever he is charging up his cannon, a Nejire can fire at it and it charges up really quickly. That's pretty cool. This is an example of something that is very unique, where you have a very specific character combination working together. It is a specifically programmed interaction, which is, of course, based on the actual events that occurred in canon. So Tamaki has a lot of things that I think are really neat. And when he first released, a lot of people were saying this character is really cool and he feels really balanced. Until people woke up and realized actually hooking someone is not balanced. So we need to start talking about the bad things. And these aren't necessarily problems with the design, they are more so problems with the implementation. We've gone over what the design is and the general concepts we like. The problems we face now are to do with the character's strengths, usually being a bit too much. The first thing that you can see on screen now is his health, which is at 350. For some reason, characters are released with 350 health, which is far more than is reasonable for them to have. Let's go over some of the problems that we see with the actual implementation of each move. So starting off is the alpha. One thing that you may notice with the alpha is that when you're hitting someone, it looks like they're getting hit by that move. But obviously no damage is actually being done. It looks like the projectile is going right through them. But it is hard to tell because of depth perception, and we're going to talk about that in more detail in a moment. So if I go into my Switch camera perspective and I do the same thing, you'll see that, no, it is actually just straight up going through her. This is not a depth perception issue, this is actually, it's just going right through her. And if I go closer, it does hit, but you can get quite far without it actually hitting. So that's kind of broken. But interestingly, if I decide to change places with my Switch version, and I do the exact same experiment, we can see that as I slowly get closer, no, it's actually hitting, it is actually aligned with the animation. So on my Switch, it's actually connecting, but on my PC it isn't. Why might this be happening? Well, a lot of the time it is down to the frame rate, so that's going to be the first thing I'm going to test. I'm going to cap my frame rate to 60, go back to the same situation, fire. Oh, no, not working, not hitting. 30 FPS. Oh, look, it hits. Why is it's specifically 30 FPS where it hits? But then if I go to 60, which is the standard, it doesn't hit. I've not moved. I'm literally just capping my FPS. Hey, what if I went to 10 FPS? Does it go even further? I mean, other than this being terrible. Oh no, it becomes even more broken. Oh, there we go. There, it's finally hitting. Okay, so only 30 FPS is it actually stable. Is it okay, well, we're learning some weird things about this game. But Alpha, clearly not properly tested. Oh, but it gets worse. You want to see a cool combo? Check this shit out. That was the tipper damage. The tipper damage just hit her while it was basically point blank range. So yeah, obviously it's a bit broken when my shot goes through the target. Apparently it's also different based on where I'm aiming. I don't know, obviously it's broken, but trying to get to a specific range is also quite difficult. You need to be quite generous with where that tipper range is. The thing that is different about Marth in Smash is the side camera. And so, because we don't have that camera, we have a third-person shoulder camera, it means we don't necessarily have a good way of telling if we are in the ideal range. And if you are being generous with range, you cannot have there be such a significant difference between the tipper damage and the regular damage. Because this is 68 damage up to 110. I don't think I have any tunings on. But that is a massive 42 damage difference. That is ridiculous. Well, moving on, let's talk about the grab. So the grab is also definitely a problem. The reason being is because you have as much ammo as you have with the regular alpha shot. Before this character releases, we saw that he had a grab, and many of us were saying, this grab better cost more ammo to use. It does not. Grabs are a very toxic part of a character's kit, and they've existed in many games before this. So, I don't know what the original grab move was, but I'm going to say it's like League of Legends Blitzcrank, where this character would have a grab move, and it was very significant because if you get grabbed, a lot of the time you die. It's such a powerful move, you have to put it on a long cooldown. It's quite slow, and you have to be very careful with your positioning. That's the counterplay. But with Tamaki, you just use it. You can just do that. You can do it as much as you like, you know, with as long as you've got ammo. And he has 5 ammo at level 1, level 9 he has 7 ammo. 7 grabs, so let's say your aim is meh, and you miss a bunch, but you only need to hit 1 to win. And then you can just get a free combo off of it, which does a lot of damage. It's not good to have a spammable grab move. Another example of this is in Overwatch, where we have Roadhog. He has a hook, and again, it's the same situation. It's if you get hit by the hook, you're probably dead. So they have to put it on a long cooldown. Even Roadhog in Overwatch was a big problem. They had to nerf him, they had to rework him several times over, just to stop him from one-hit comboing people with that damn grab. So when you have a character such as Tamaki, or even Aizawa was the first one to have this problem where he can just grab people. He has 5 ammo at level 9 now, Aizawa, because he's gotten nerfed since. 5 is still quite a lot, and I don't really like that this grab is a thing that exists either. But in the case of Tamaki, that problem is even worse. It's not good design. Please take a look at the way that other grabs work in other games. You get one use of them and they go onto long cooldowns. So having spammable grabs, which is basically your win condition, because you can either do a ton of damage or they die off of it, and given that Tamaki is a strike character and combos are a very important part of his kit, because like, look how much damage he does. This is a 300 health character, that is almost 300 health worth of damage. My beta is still at level 1, by the way. That is ridiculous. This shouldn't be a thing. On the topic of beta, let's talk about that a bit, shall we? So the way the beta works is that you press the button, he flies forward, and then he hits you. Look how far forward he can actually dash. That was barely out of range, but this is like well too much. And also the size of the hitbox is pretty big as well, so even if you don't hit someone exactly, you're still doing a lot of damage, and even if they like move out of the way, you're probably still going to hit them. I really don't like that it has this much range, but you know what's even worse than that? Tracking! I've gone on record many times before about how much I do not like tracking in this game, because it is such like an inbuilt aim assist. This game continuously gets like easier and easier to play because a lot of the time the game is doing a lot of the work for you. You have a lot of very low skill players that are able to get away just by playing a certain character because of how much work is done for you. They can be making the dumbest plays you've ever seen, but they'll still be able to land beta every time because there's absolutely no need to aim ever. So tracking in combination with the long range is the problem. You can get rid of one, you can get rid of both. I would prefer to get rid of both. But both of them together makes this character ridiculously stupid. And also, let's quickly look at the damage value, 115. Let me actually change my other Tamaki to a different character and then do it again. 110. So it's 110 at level 1, at level 9 it becomes 150. So here's Bakugo with his 350 HP for some reason. I'm going to do my full combo on him now. And look at that, I've almost killed him off of that, off of hitting one hook, and the ridiculous damage on the beta has made it so that 150 is ridiculous. This is a combo character. The idea is that all of the things together creates the high damage, not just off of one button. Like, given that he has the stealth, isn't the idea that you hit someone with the beta, you go into stealth, and then you hit them with the second hit because they don't know where you are anymore? Isn't that the sensible idea behind that design decision? But apparently, no. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. Let's also talk a bit about down power, because this move has 500 down power, and what that means is that it always hard knocks down every time you hit them with it. And so, if you have someone that has armor, now either whenever he kicks someone with his beta, it has armor on it. So if these two characters were to collide, in most cases, because Ida has armor on his beta, he won't get knocked out of it. But if Tamaki happens to hit him, well, we knocked each other back because I don't have armor. But it should not be the case that I can easily knock him out of armor. If I go to Kirishima, who is able to always apply armor to himself using his special action, and I hit him with beta, that also immediately knocks him over. So the problem we have here is that there is absolutely no point in having armor because it is pointless against this. I always win. It's an armor defeating move. If we have armor defeating moves, then what's the point of armor? It doesn't even make sense for this to be an armor defeating move. He's just slapping you with a tentacle. It's nothing like armor piercing or anything. It's just a stupid decision. But there's also like problems with the mechanics of armor. Let's move on. So when Tamaki is into his cannon, if you have high FPS like I have, then moving it around is kind of slow. I'm trying to do like a full rotation here. Am I even able to get to a full rotation before it goes off automatically? It's about the same. Yeah, I can do that. It's not a problem. And it fires eventually. I can't hold it forever. But if I were to make my FPS about 30, then as you can see, it moves around very quickly because do we even have a QA department here working on this game? There's no way there's any actual quality assurance going on. It's just continuously putting out slop. Nothing's being tested, and we're running into the same bugs that some have been fixed. We know that FPS causes issues. We should know to test these things, but it's not happening. It's not getting fixed. What is usually the case in development is not that there is no QA people. It's just that when the message gets to the developers, nothing happens to it. It gets ignored, or because like we're working on deadlines, it just needs to get pushed out. And so any quality changes just don't make it into the game on time. A lot of it will probably be fixed in the coming season, but it's ridiculous that we're getting these characters released in such a state where these obvious and predictable bugs are making it in. On the topic of canon, let us talk a bit about the camera alignment. I've talked about it before, but this is something that also affects Tamaki. It is similar to the way that Bakugo works, where you'll probably find that it's quite difficult to shoot people through a wall. Tamaki has the same problem. It's quite difficult to shoot someone through a wall. So I'm going to use this example again to show what I mean. Here's Nejire. She's going to float here for a bit. I'm going to aim directly at her. Where the hell is this cannon going? Nowhere near Nejire, I swear. Like, it is completely wrong. If I back up a bit and do the exact same thing again, it does connect. It just doesn't connect when I'm so close to the surface, because that's how the camera alignment is. It's bad. And it confuses where it's meant to be aiming, because it's not aiming through the window, it's aiming at the specific point that is underneath my crosshair, right? And so everything after that crosshair, that's where the laser's actually going. Also, finally, I just want to say that when you do this, the cancel timing is kind of awkwardly slow. I just find this to be a bit awkward. Like, I'm mashing as soon as I hit the special action. I'm mashing, look how long it takes me to be able to act out of it. I wish I could cancel it immediately. That would make a lot more sense, and it wouldn't require me to lunge so goddamn far. Right? Does that make sense? So let us now talk about the beta. This is the explorative part that I was talking about. And so I'm going to do a reboot with some mods loaded, and I will show you, in my opinion, what might be a good idea to change the way that Tamaki works to make him feel like a better character. I can't change everything, but we'll see. You'll see what I mean. So here I am once again in a very similar situation, but you may notice now that the camera is different. That's because I have a mod that changes the camera alignment. So now it is actually more vertically aligned with my character and with the way that the cannon works. So if we do the same experiment again, where I have no trade fly out over here, I go up really close, I fire the cannon. It still is not great because I think that the way that the cannon works is it spawns in a particular location. But I think it is probably a little bit better at it. Hard to say. I haven't done it specifically to work with Tamaki, but I have this as well for Bakugo, and it is a lot more consistent with Bakugo. It's always going to be aligned to the right a bit more, but vertically it is actually quite good. It will require more actual work into the way that the system works, not just camera. So beyond that, going back to the other things, Alpha, as we've discussed, is a bit broken, obviously needs fixes. As for the aimed Alpha, I think it would make sense if this was actually using up multiple ammo whenever you used it. Maybe 2 ammo, maybe 3 ammo. I think because this normal Alpha is supposed to be a bit more spammable, you should make this about 3 ammo cost. Some would say even 4, but point is that this being able to spam it 1 ammo cost all the time is not okay. Also, you may have noticed something just now. This is actually moving a bit slower than usual, and that's because I have slowed it down using a mod. I only have so much control over what I can actually change with Tamaki. This seems to be like one of the main options, which is I can slow down the movement of this. And if it's going to be a hook ability, it does need to feel a bit slow because it shouldn't be that strong at long range. Let's see how long it takes for me to grab this Ochako. It took a little bit. If you're up close to someone, it doesn't matter much, which is fine because, you know, if you're not hooking them that far, but if they're far away enough, then, you know, it should be harder to hit someone because they're constantly moving around. You need to use a bit more prediction. It requires more skill to use. But one of the things that I would also like to change, which I don't really have the ability to do, is to change the startup of the move, because someone isn't really able to react to this because it's just coming out. But if it was a bit more obvious, like there was a bit of a startup animation and then it fired out, I would make the similar change to characters like Aizawa, which is a bit more noticeable when I'm doing this, that I've slowed down the missile speed. I don't think it's okay to be like super slow. It's mostly against like moving characters, but I think also like a slower startup is important as well. So there's more time for someone to react to it. I think reaction time is an important thing that we should be encouraging people to react visually rather than predicting. Especially if it's, you know, such a strong thing like a hook. Quick note while editing. One way you can implement this is if you're holding the aim button, Tamaki holds out the tentacle, but there's like a minimum amount of time before you can fire it. If you pass that minimum time, it would work the same. You can also see that if I go really far away, I think it's a bit more noticeable the slow down missile speed. And this is slowed down a significant amount. I think base is about 20,000. I've slowed it to 7,500. So more than half. This is more than half speed. Or I've reduced it more than... Hold on, getting the calculator out. 37.5% speed. That's how much I've slowed it down. And it still feels pretty good. So I think that's a good sense of this is way faster than it should be. Things I don't like about Tamaki Beta. One is the very long range of it. I don't think it makes sense for them to have a lunge. I think because it's a melee attack, it should be used in melee range only. So what is appropriate range, I think, is like that. Like you can keep the forward momentum, but he should not be able to fly forwards very much. Right? This is like reasonable range for it. And also, while I'm on the subject, look at this tracking. How on earth was I even remotely like looking at that? I was clearly aiming at the floor. This has some of the strongest tracking in the game, and I don't know why they've done this. I wasn't even in range and it still tracked onto her. I don't know why you've done this. Viking, please fix. Now Gamma, I actually think this is mostly, for the most part, a pretty nice skill. Yes, it's got big damage. Yes, it's got really long range. I don't think these are problems. What I think is a problem is this. I think this is a problem because people use it to air stall. And then you have so much freedom as to how you use it. But let's look at another character with a cannon. Momo. When Momo has to fire a cannon, she has to be on the ground. Because if she goes up high, she's in the air, she can't actually do anything. She falls to the ground. If I release the button mid-air, it doesn't start firing until she's hit the ground. This is something that Tamaki does not have to worry about. How about we start treating our characters equally and not blatant power creep? Whereas Tamaki gets all of the benefits, none of the drawback. Like, if he had to be on the ground to use it, I think that would make it so that it is far less versatile. There's no risk of, like, air stalling. And so you wouldn't constantly seeing Tamakis in the sky firing cannons at people. Not that I think it's a big issue, I just think it becomes a bit more limiting as to the time that you can use it. Because for one thing, based on the terrain, like, he's not going to have a clear shot. If you're in the sky, you have a very clear shot. And ideally, you get to high ground if you want to have a clear shot on things. Because, like, I can't see the people down there. They are, like, through the ground. I can try and, like, predict by shooting through the wall. That's only because I have vision on them. But most of the time, I would have to get to high ground to use it. Now I have a good vision of them, and I'm still grounded. I think that would be more fun, more thought-provoking. And we like that in our character designs, don't we? We like it when they're less brain dead, as they say. So that is all I've got for Tamaki for now. So regarding Tamaki's final conclusion, I would rate him about B-, low B, on the design and implementation tier list. Just because I like some of the general concepts, but I don't like a lot of the things I listed. Definitely redeemable without any significant design changes. The design is good, I like it. I like what I see, I like what I feel. It's just a lot of the implementation, and that is usually the case. But not for this next one, which is going to be Assault Endeavor. So this is Assault Endeavor, and he's very much a strong character that is especially effective versus grounded targets. He's like an area denial character. So he does this through lots of AoE, the floor is now lava, if you're touching the floor you take damage. And all of his moves are very much grounded based. If you're hitting someone in the air, you're not going to hit them with Beta because it doesn't even target in the air. The Gamma, you would have to hit someone directly, which is not going to happen most of the time. So really, the only reliable action you have is the Alpha, which is fine. I like that he has a clearly defined niche area. That's a good design thing. And his combos are pretty simple, but effective. You hit them with the Beta, it keeps them in place for a while, and then you can get like an Alpha for free, and the damage from the grounded part of it is also especially effective. You can try to hit Beta into Gamma, it's not going to work most of the time because, well, they can move before the Gamma actually hits them. If they don't move, then you will hit them with the Gamma, but if someone really doesn't want to be there, then there's nothing forcing them to stay in that one spot. Because you can get through the firewall if you just have a well-timed roll. I do think it's a bit difficult to do, and so I'm not going to be talking about the good about Endeavor for very long, because I don't think that there is a lot very good about him. He has quite a lot of bad things about him, even. And he has many elements to do with power creep. So what you may notice about this Alpha is that it is very similar to the way that Deku's works. So it is a projectile with 6 ammo, it is decently fast, it has decent range, and that's very similar to the way that Assault Deku's alpha works. Also 6 ammo, pretty fast. This is significantly faster than Endeavor's and the range is much better, but the damage is also very similar, 59, 82. And if I go back to Endeavor, level 1, 57, I have tuning on my Deku, 76. So let me get the exact values off of ultrarumble.com. So Deku's base values for his alpha, 58 level 1, 80 level 9. And for Endeavor, it is 60 at level 1, 80 at level 9. So it is the same at level 9 for both characters, whereas Endeavor's level 1 damage is 2 damage higher. So in terms of pure output, Endeavor is just stronger, and also if you're hitting a grounded target, you are probably going to hit 1 tick on the ground from that grounded damage. So this isn't really like an 80 damage alpha, this is actually closer to like a 92 damage alpha. Because he's Assault Deku, he's actually taking less damage, so if I quickly change him, yeah, 80 damage, there you go. And so we're always getting 92 damage most of the time. And also there's like a burn effect, which, as I had once complained, burn in this game is so goddamn negligible. Look at his health bar, look how little it's changed. There's like a tiny smidge of a change in there. Basically nothing. I would think that if burn was going to be remade, it should be more prevalent in this kit, and so his base damage, you know, is quite high considering that. Since there is no change to the way that burn works, I don't care too much, but I think compared just to the way that Assault Deku's alpha works, this is like obvious power creep. And we don't like power creep in our games. The only other ways you would have to argue that it's balanced is because of the projectile speed, which is not massively different because the projectile speed is still very fast. And also the range, I mean, it's still got decent range. Again, like, it's not significant enough. It is, in most cases, just a better alpha. So talking a bit about beta, this is probably one of the worst offenses in his kit, because you do not need to be like very close to the target at all. Let me just do a range check. It's about that range. So I can do that, hit someone over there, and it does a quick 75 damage. There is no projectile, there is no time taken to get there, it just does it immediately. And then I can immediately follow up. So realistically, like, because you can always hit an alpha in there, we're doing, that's 160 damage burst immediately. Level 1. Like, that's a lot for like a level 9 attack. And if I am level 9, 246. I pressed 2 buttons and it was extremely easy to do. Absolutely ridiculous. And I don't think the combo is the problem here. I think it is mostly the base damage from the beta alone. Because look at this. It did 154 damage, beta alone, because I hit someone with it. And I can do that at really far away. I'm nowhere near that guy, I just hit him at 110 damage. And that very much depends on where they get hit. There we go, 154 damage. It is instant, I'm nowhere near them, and I can follow up with an alpha for free, so that number is effectively even higher than that. Absolutely ridiculous damage. And let me tell you why this is unusual. So tackling the damage dealt by the beta. I said before that doing a lot of damage, 140 damage by tapping someone with the beta, I don't like the way that that works. And you may notice there is actually something peculiar about the way that this works mechanically. In this game, there are many moves that when you connect them, it does a bunch of small damage and then it does a bigger damage. Right, so Shigaraki is an example of this. I'm constantly doing the same amount of damage. Let me quickly change the display option so you can see the exact numbers. 7 damage per tick right now. Some of it is because of the... So the base amount is about 8 damage per tick, I think. Also, I'm a strike character, so I think it's probably 7. But the point is, it's doing 8 damage multiple times. And if I'm level 1 and I were to do the exact same thing, it is still doing the exact same amount of damage while holding. And the major damage increase comes from the throw at the end, 96 at the end for the final toss. And here it is 110. So the repeated damage in between is the same, and that never increases. And I think the reason for that is because small numbers, if you increase them ever so slightly, because it happens multiple times, you get a much different outcome. I don't know how many times exactly it hits if I change my setting back. So it does 40 damage total for all of them, and it's doing 8 damage each time, so that means it's hitting 5 times. So if you increase that 8 to a 9, then he's getting a plus 5 damage from that, which is pretty significant if you were to say, like, he gets that every level. Most characters do not see a damage increase of 5 per level. In a lot of the cases, it's going to be like 3 damage per level. 5 is quite a lot, and especially, like, that's not even including the throw at the end. In the case of Endeavor, the multiple hits aren't just about damage, it's also about holding them in place. That's the wrong move. So yeah, it's the hit stun as well. Tech Mirio, who we're not getting to just yet, has a similar effect, where he's constantly doing the same amount of damage. I believe it's 6 damage per tick, and this does not increase per level. This is an example of something good. And Endeavor, he actually does get additional damage. In fact, he gets damage at every level apart from level 4 and level 9. So right now it is 5 damage per tick. Level 2, 6 damage per tick. Level 3, 7 damage per tick. Level 4, it does not increase, so it remains 7 damage per tick. You get the idea. And so by the time I hit level 9 and I do it, I'm getting 11 damage per tick. If I'm balancing Endeavor, I would not change this number per level. That would be the same and have most of the damage increase be from the burst right at the end. I don't know why they've been inconsistent in this case, but that's just the way it is, and I think that's contributing too much to the overall damage outcome. Oh, and this is obviously just like blatant power creep over the other Fire Circle move, which is Derby. It did 44 damage there at level 1. At level 9, this becomes 100 damage. That is not even close to the amount of damage Endeavor is doing at level 1. Derby has to get so close just to get not even similar results. It is just like very blatant power creep. And if we are up against, because there's no projectile, if we are up against, let's say, Derby, and he were to use his alpha, as you probably know, there is a projectile negation aspect of this move. If I try shooting him, he gets negated. But if I use beta, completely ignores it. Let me try that again with better timing. There it is. Do I care? Nope. Take all that damage. Your protection means nothing. So very easy to hit move. You're not safe. It's just so easy. It's ridiculous. So much reward, such little risk. Yeah, I don't think I can really replicate it, but it is possible because of the lack of down power on the beta, that if you get caught on like a ledge and someone is like in this space, the pushback of the wall will push you in a way that back in towards this wall, but you're still close enough to the firewall that it will hit you a second time, because it can't push you back into a circle because you're colliding with this wall here. So you get stuck into an infinite loop as long as the beta is still active. And do you know how much down power the beta has? Let me just double check. It is 50. 50 down power. And if you don't know how down power works in this game, if you take 500 down power, you get put into a hard knockdown state in which you become invincible until you recover, which is either you can air recover or you hit the ground. And the general idea of down power is to stop combos from infinitely looping. And so the down power being so low on that firewall means that there's nothing to stop you. You're always going to be stuck in that infinite loop. It needs to be higher. I would say 250 minimum, which is 5 times the amount it is now. There is a very common trend when I'm looking at, numbers and analyzing skills, where my opinion of where the numbers should actually be is usually that sort of scale, where it's like, this is 5 times too high. It needs to be like 5 times less, just to get to a barely reasonable amount. That's how ridiculous the balancing and design and implementation changes seem to be in this game. There's such an obvious lack of quality assurance. So because beta is always instant, it is completely unreactable. And you want to see something else that is unreactable? The gamma. Why is it unreactable? Because if you're looking away from Endeavor, you have no idea that a giant fireball is about to hit you in the head. And this is unfortunately frequently the case, where you're not always looking at Endeavor. So most people, he is just a fly. Because of how far away he is, things get smaller as they are further away. So when he's charging this up, it's not obvious something's coming towards you. Maybe you're fighting someone, maybe you're distracted, and then you get smacked by a fireball, and then you lose 200 health, and there was nothing you could do about it because you weren't properly warned. In other games, when there is a move like this, we have a indicator that tells you, hey, something is coming your way, you should react to it. We have other instances in this game already where similar things like this happen. Imagine if All For One was doing his gamma and there was no indicator. You just did not see the red. It's like that, but in the case of Endeavor's gamma, you get hit by 200 damage. So again, please imagine if there was no indicator to your opponents that AFO was charging his gamma, right? What if your excuse at that point, if you're making the excuse that, oh, you should be looking at Endeavor. Oh, you should be looking at AFO. It's not my fault. It's not the game's fault you didn't dodge. You should have been looking at him. Right? I know it's a straw man argument, but this is just my point, is that we have something similar, very similar in the game already. You should be able to react to something like this coming your way. And yet there is just no indication. It's just poor design. So the beta, I think this is poor design because you can't react to that and you get so much for free. And the gamma is poor design because, again, you can't really react to it unless you're looking directly at him. And even then, it's pretty fast. You have to be running like immediately. The way that the fireball comes at you, this is not the way that an area denial is supposed to work. It's supposed to be obvious and easy to dodge, because it's not about doing damage, it's about controlling the space. It's saying, don't be in this location, I don't want you here anymore, I want you to leave. Another problem of the gamma that many people have pointed out when he released is that there is a lot of screen shaking when he throws this. People don't like the screen shaking. This is more like an accessibility thing. Right, there should be a way to like reduce the amount of screen shake. And this is a parameter that can be changed, might I add. Like, I don't think it requires a major update. You can, I think the way that the master data works is that you can change any of these parameters at any time. And it's just up to whether or not the server is overriding those values. So if they're not being overridden, that means I can change it client side. So I'm pretty sure people have created mods that reduces the screen shake. But yeah, the screen shake is just very annoying. I'm sure many people will agree. It's not very nice. And you know what else isn't nice? Performance issues. Because, of course, people play this game on many different platforms, such as the Switch, which is already limited at 30 FPS. If you're fighting an Assault Endeavor and you're on Chaos City, which many people call it Lag City because of the performance issues, then, you know, Endeavor is just going to absolutely destroy your system. I have seen examples of their game freezing and basically just being a free kill to any Endeavor player because they can't react, because there's literally nothing they can do. Their game just freezes up because of these conditions. So because of all these things, these fast projectiles and unreactable attacks, this becomes a very easy character to play. I think as a skill set, I think that it should be a difficult thing. I think it makes sense if skill sets are more difficult than like a base character, it makes sense that they get more difficult to play. Right? Does that make sense to anyone else? Why is it being made to be so much easier, huh? It's just dumb design decisions constantly. It does feel like the quality of every character release is progressively getting worse. So how do we fix this? I have changed some parameters with some modding, and I will give you an idea of what I have done. Things that I think make sense based on what I can actually change. Again, this is exploration only. I haven't done anything to the alpha. I think it's generally okay. It should feel decently reliable. One thing I might change is make the spread of the fire a bit faster, just so it feels a bit more consistent. I don't know. I think the very slow spread is weird looking. And also, you know, it gives it more impact. It makes it look more impactful. Maybe like make it faster based on level. But we're not here to buff Endeavor, are we? Because this is the problem, really. The big meat and the potatoes is the beta. So one thing I would like to change about the beta is just don't make it like an instant cast like this. Make it feel like a actual projectile. Rapido Choco has the same problem. I don't like the way that the gamma works because it is just like you cast it from anywhere. There's no like distance to travel. And if you really wanted to make it instant, you have to have a trade-off. Make it like the range of the move. Because basically anything up close is the same as instant anyway, right? At this point, the only difference is the animation startup time. But if you made it that the range was greatly reduced, which I've done here, I've made it so that this is as far away as I can cast now. I have to really get close to someone if I want to hit them with it, which means that I am now a target. Right, so that's the trade-off, make it less safe. Another thing I have done is, when you cast it, look how long it takes to come out. I have increased the delay to it. That way, it does become more reactable. And I would also like it if the, I think the red ring, is actually visible to other people as well. So if I do have another Endeavor, and I tell them to cast beta on me, you can see the ring before the actual fire circle appears. I'm gonna have to go back to my switch for this. Okay, I got my switch back up. So if I show you, actually let me also put on friendly fire, maybe it'll make a difference. No, it doesn't make a difference. But you can see the ring, like the entire duration before the actual fire ring appears. So like you can still react to this and also move away in time, just by increasing that delay. That changes things quite significantly, I think. Another thing I've changed is by increasing the level of the beta. Normally the fire ring increases in size, and it still does increase in size by a little bit, but I have reduced the amount it increases. Because I think that, similar to the way that gamma works, is by holding down the button it gets bigger. I think beta could use something similar. So when you hold down the button you get the reticle. I think that's fine. I think that by pressing the button he should go into like a charge state, and then you can press the button again and he'll release early. So you have two states. You have hold where you don't do anything and it'll do like the maximum amount, or you can double tap it to make him pop it out very quickly. And the main difference is that one of them is a smaller circle that is less powerful, more reactable, maybe make the duration even less. Or then you can have a hold version which has a much bigger effect, more damage, bigger fire circle, etc. There is no charge mechanic like that currently, so right now assume that the tap always looks like that. But I think that would make more sense in the design of the character, and you'd be putting more thought into the way that this character works. Considering the delay already makes it much more easy to play around, I think it could feel quite satisfying to be in a situation where you can afford to hold it a little bit longer and then have much greater payoff. Just like the gamma. And speaking of the gamma, I've done a few different changes to the gamma. First of all, the projectile speed is significantly slower. because again you should be able to react to it. Both of them are slower because it shouldn't be such a easy thing to do. Also, let me just point out, the delay on the beta actually makes it slightly easier to chain beta into gamma, right? Because the delayed hit stun actually makes it even easier. If I am close to the target, this is especially the case because now there's less distance for the gamma to travel, and so it's much easier to connect it. I think that makes sense if this is like a bread and butter combo where it does a good amount of damage, but I also have to get quite up close to make it effective. Another potential change is when the gamma does hit, the expansion of the fire could be slightly changed as well. I think that makes sense because being an area denial tool, you should be able to try and escape as quickly as possible, and the expanded ball size at higher level makes it so that the initial coverage is greater as well, while not actually making the overall range that much greater. So it does gain power, not just through damage numbers, but also it's harder to escape now, especially if you're holding it. These are some of the ideas I've had. Okay, so overall, I think Assault Endeavor's main problems are design problems and not necessarily just implementation. I think a lot of it is just design. Some of it is implementation for sure. This character has problems. I like the general concept of area denial. I think they've done it pretty badly. There's also definitely problems of power creep in this character, with the alpha and the beta especially. I think there are ways to make this character feel more fair, and part of that is not by necessarily toning down his damage. I think you do need to tone down some of his damage, but it needs to be easier to avoid. He should be difficult to play. I think being aggressive with the area denial is ideally what this character should be playing as, and not about doing as much damage as possible. I think we have the strike counterpart that should be more damage focused. I think this guy should be all in on area denial. That's my take on him. But because I don't like where he's at, the core design concept, fine. I don't like some of the more finer details to it. I think those are pretty bad. I think there definitely needs to be more quality control on this character. So on a tier list, I would put him C tier. As a refresher, C tier are characters that need more significant changes. So I don't like the way that Endeavor is. He needs to be changed quite a bit. But enough about that. It is time to go on to the final character for this video, which is Technical Mirio. Alrighty, let's talk a bit about Technical Mirio. This is a very strong character in the current state of the game. And some of it's fine, more so than people are ready to admit. Let's start off with the good. What do we like about Tech Mirio? First of all, high-speed gameplay is actually really fun. Constantly moving around, aiming at targets. It's very fun, and it's not super easy to always hit your shots, especially when you're fighting a moving target. It's pretty fun, but those with powerful aim assists are definitely going to be at an advantage here. There's also some good potential in this character. If you do some melee hits, you can immediately cancel into an alpha, which can lead to some good damage. For bop 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 bop. Bop 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 bop. With the beta, you can sometimes slip a bit of alpha in. I kind of hit him on the ground there. And also, when you're fighting Tech Mirio, the gamma is pretty fun to engage with. Some people don't like it because, you can just immediately get hit by that. But if you're able to wait it out, they become very vulnerable. So it does encourage players to be just less spammy, wait it out, predict your opponent's movements a bit more. And gamma is very much a prediction based thing. It locks your camera as well when you use it, so you can't actually hit someone that's behind you. You have to be looking at the person that you're trying to counter for it to actually have any effect. So I'm fighting this dude, he misses the counter, I go in, I do some stuff, boom bop, combos. Punishing mistakes is fun, and we should be encouraging this. I like the counter. I don't think it's perfect, and there are definitely things I'll change, but we'll get to that later. So what does Tech Mirio do? Being a technical character, you get the reload boost. It's very much about like resource management. I think generally tech characters don't do this very well because the values are just not where they should be. I think the design on tech characters is pretty bad in this game. What the character does is that he has some versatility. He can use his alpha at range, he can move around, and of course permeation allows him to like go through walls, which is, you know, Mirio's gimmick, is like going through walls and stuff. So you can do all sorts of fun things like that. So when you're fighting someone, you can hit them with a bunch of alphas, you can hit them with a beta. That gives some time for the alpha to reload, and by the time that they've recovered, your alpha's reloaded, and then you can continue fighting. This is a good example of cycling cooldowns. This is stuff that I like to see in character design. It is very cool, actually. So Tech Mirio, in a nutshell, permeation, go through walls while fighting, constantly going in and out of permeation, being hard to hit, while also being very strong in combat. That is the gist of Mirio. Not just like Tech Mirio, the way that this character plays, but also like Mirio in general. He's hard to hit. So what do we not like about Tech Mirio? There's unfortunately quite a few things. One of the major problems is the incredible mobility on the alpha. There is a bit of an exploit you can perform. Let's say my Ochako gives me some low gravity. You can do this with space hop tuning as well. You get some absolutely incredible speed, and then you can continuously abuse this. So you can zoom around really fast, and you become basically impossible to hit. And also the amount of invincibility that you get in between shots, you're already ridiculously hard to hit. I don't think Mirio is supposed to be an invincibility character. I think he's supposed to be a go through walls character. He's meant to have moments of vulnerability, but he's timing it well. And I think the general designs of Mirio kind of miss the mark on this. It's really not good. It's not good that he's able to be invincible for so damn long, because there's like basically no window for vulnerability during his alphas. Especially once he gets it to level 9, he gets lots more ammo, he can continuously do this even longer. And let's say I don't have fast reload on, I consume up all of the ammo. Oh no, I'm vulnerable, quickly go into beta. I can wait out a bunch of the duration for my alpha to come back up, and now we're back to business. We're cycling out abilities, but we're doing this for the sake of maximizing invincibility, which again, I don't think this is what Mirio is supposed to be doing. I don't think Mirio is supposed to be an invincibility character. So the penalty reload of the alpha is unfortunately pretty forgiven. Beta, honestly, I think it's fine. Gamma is a thing that people will complain about. On one hand, I think a lot of the complaints about Gamma is actually just a skill issue, because people are not being patient with the Gamma at all. But I think a problem is that the penalty for missing the Gamma, for like not activating, is absolutely minimal. Like, it only takes me like a second to get this thing back. Like, that is nothing. There should be at least like 10 seconds I'm talking about. It is ridiculous how small that cooldown is. Once people start spamming counter, this is when it's like, okay, this is stupid. This is dumb to play against, because he can literally do it anytime. He just needs to get lucky. And when that happens, the amount of damage he gets as a reward. Fortunately, bots are really stupid at aiming. Boom. Oh wait, I didn't even hit him because he permeated. God damn it. Actually, I think bots specifically don't target you while you're invincible. There we go, 220 damage. Ooh, that's so much ridiculous damage. That is so stupid. Because essentially what we've got here is a win condition on one button, which I've criticized in the past for characters such as Rapid All Might, where you just hit one button, there's your win condition, 210 damage. I've also said the same for characters like Shinso. Again, I hit Alpha once and I win. Aizawa, I hit Alpha once and I win. And of course, as discussed earlier, Tamaki, I press one button and I win. It's not as simple as press the button, but it is still the similar effect. It's like, it's one condition. You have to meet one condition and you do a ridiculous amount of damage. which can absolutely change the tide of the battle. I think it's fair for it to feel impactful, but the amount that you can spam it means that you're already not being penalized for missing the counter. But are you ready to see the biggest problem with Gamma? The other problem with Gamma is the absolutely ridiculous range, because if someone is trying to attack you from afar, then you are not safe. Mirio is just going to hit counter and he's going to fly so goddamn far just to hit you. And it's not just like the Tamaki situation, it can be other characters as well. One example I'll give you is Nejire. Because of course, she can fly and she can fire projectiles, but because of the speed of the projectile, it gives Mirio quite a lot of time to react to it. That makes Mirio especially powerful in particular matchups. And given, you know, the range problem, let's say Nejire is all the way over there. This is the maximum range of her alpha. She fires something, I can easily react to it, boom. There's so much time to react. So there's a lot of problems with this Mirio guy. And honestly, you have not even seen the worst of it. Also, people have discovered an exploit with the alpha, because if you were to activate permeation like so, and then go into wall, it up-warps you. For some reason. It just up-warps you, and I've seen people take advantage of this in many ways. It's not always super consistent, but getting into trees, for example, I've seen people do this plenty. I'm now in the tree. Super easy to get into a tree now. The massive amounts of invincibility is absolutely very abusable. And it's not just Mirio that can do this, it's also Monoma, because Monoma can be absolutely anyone, which is why in this tournament coming up, we're probably going to be seeing lots of people running Monoma Mirio, where people are just like holding down the button. Where imagine not only Mirio is doing this, but Monoma is doing this as well. Just the massive amounts of invincibility, two people constantly firing alphas at you, and you cannot stop them. They're just gonna keep doing things, and they are invincible the entire time. The only thing that can save us at this point is Aizawa. Stop right there! Boom! I also have one bottom win condition. Take that! Anyway, game sucks. Now, surprisingly, if we're going to be talking about making Mirio better, there's actually quite a lot of parameters I found that I can change. And I really like what I've come up with. So I'm going to show you that now. So let's talk about how would we make Tech Mirio better. And I have had quite a lot of fun changing some of the parameters in the files for Tech Mirio. And I think the most significant thing that I've discovered is that there is a parameter that makes his alpha more expensive when he's doing the invincible dash. Look at my ammo, it's using 1 extra ammo when I dash. And that means he's running out of ammo on alpha very quickly. This is something that people would have this discussion about, saying, oh, we should program something like this into the game so it can be balanced this way. It's already programmed, it's already fully functional. It's just the number is set to 0. It's set to cost an additional 0 ammo. But by setting it to 1, it's now actually working. We can see that it is working. And I think that's ridiculous. Clearly someone on the design team had an idea of what would be balanced. And then someone was like, let's just set it to 0 for now. See what happens. I'll tell you what happens. You get one of the most broken characters in the game since Monoma. One of the major problems was the mobility. And you might be able to notice that I am moving significantly slower every time I do my dash. What you might also notice is that there is reduced invincibility, like you can see him glowing blue for less amount of time. Another thing that is not so obvious is about the speed drop-off. So every time Mirio does his dash, after a certain amount of time, all that momentum that he picked up from the dash drops off over a short period of time. What I've done is that I've made that short period of time even shorter, like significantly so. So now, he drops off pretty quick. That means any momentum that he's carried over from the dash, he's gonna lose it. Like it will not be able to take you that far anymore. Like yeah, he gets some distance, especially if he does it with a jump. But one, he can't keep performing the dash because of the increase in ammo cost. And two, he's just not going that far. And this is also a little bit of a response to the whole thing about the massive amounts of height that he's getting. If I get a bunch of rapid cards, ultimately I can't change that in my version. That is something that is just like in the programming, in the animation or whatever. The way that works, I can't change that. I think the way it works, the dash, is that it takes his momentum and it multiplies it. That way, if he's only going slightly fast, it doesn't actually go that fast. If he's going very fast, then he'll go even, especially faster. And that works vertically as well as horizontally. It shouldn't work vertically, it should only be horizontal. Now, I've been firing my alpha quite a bit, but a change that you may not have noticed is that I have also greatly reduced the projectile speed of the alpha bullet. And that's because I feel like Mirio is far too effective at long range. Mirio, I think, makes sense as a short range fighter where it makes sense that he's constantly dodging attacks from his opponents. That way he can, dance around them during the fight and you can like cycle his cooldowns. He should not be like all the way over here firing at people. This doesn't make much sense to me. And considering the speed of the bullet was massively faster than what it is now, like more than twice the amount. I can't change the range of the bullet, that's just not something that's worked, but this is kind of like the next best thing. Another thing, I've mentioned it before, is the concept of fall-off damage. Currently, it's a mechanic that is exclusive to Present Mic, where the further away the projectile has to travel, the less damage it does. This is another means of controlling a character's effective range. So yeah, I don't think Mirio should be able to be flying from far away, shooting at people. I think he should be encouraged to be fighting closer up. Probably like mid-range, because like close range is really not good unless you're going to use beta. By the way, I haven't spoken about beta much, and that's because I actually really like the state of beta. Like, maybe if I were to change something, it would be about combos or whatever, make it more usable in combos. But generally, this is actually really nice. I don't see any real problems with this. Like, I used it as an example earlier when talking about Endeavor, about the small damage ticks. How this does not actually scale with level, and this is a very good thing. And it was not a good thing in the case of Endeavor. So yeah, genuinely, beta, I think this is fine. Like, you don't have that much control over mobility while you're in the ground, and you can dodge it pretty easily. If you have it level 9, it lasts a longer duration, you can turn around a bit more, which is fine, I guess. But yeah, don't actually have any big problems with it. It's mostly to do with the alpha, that is like 90% of it. But 10%, I would also say, is like the gamma. Things I don't like about the gamma is that, of course, it's just like a one-hit win condition sort of thing. I actually don't mind that the cooldown is refreshed if you successfully connect the counter. And actually, this is kind of cool because it is rewarding to the player for hitting the counter, and you're not being punished for hitting a counter. Because if you use the counter, and people know that you've used the counter, then they're going to say, he no longer has a counter, now he's vulnerable. So you're getting penalized for being vulnerable. That doesn't make sense. So the refresh on the cooldown of Gamma makes sense in that sort of context. You hit it once, now you still have it. You still have that ace up your sleeve. So genuinely not a problem. The major problem is just that the cooldown is too short, and especially at level 9, it gets very spammable. That is the major issue. So if I was going to change it, I would make it so that missing it puts it on a longer cooldown. So you're vulnerable for a longer period of time, and that's like at all levels. And also I think I would change maybe the counter window, so it is longer at higher level and shorter at lower level. In a perfect world, hitting counter is going to be a difficult thing to do, and it's just about punishing people who are using very obvious attacks, making it a reaction-based move rather than a lucky guess move. But the other thing that we can change about the counter is the range. Because if I take my Tamaki and move him all the way over here and start charging up a Gamma, as you do, and I hit counter, it no longer does anything. Because I've reduced the range it has. Once again, here comes the cannon, counter, nothing happens, boof. He still is invincible during the animation, and I think that's fine. Again, maybe reduced invincibility and counter window at lower level, but I have to get a lot closer if you want to actually connect this. Is that in range maybe? Oh, it is. Okay, that's in range. I think that's a ideal range probably. Whereas the maximum, this might be out of range. Yeah, that's out of range. So it is at least within alpha range. I think that's in range. Yeah. See, I really should not have been able to get that counter off. That should have been like too late, I think. I think the damage is still too high. I would probably want to reduce that. And to compensate, when you hit someone with the counter, it does a hard knockdown, right? Which means it always knocks them on their ass, no matter what, and they become invincible. I think it would be very cool if there was a way that you could counter someone, if you could counter someone and then like immediately shoot them a little bit with an alpha. Just like a little bit of chance to follow up after that. I think that would be cool, just specifically for getting the most value out of the counter. It's still there as an option, and you no longer need to rely on it for the actual damage. I think the reason why the damage is as high as it is because they need to make it feel worthwhile hitting the counter. I think that's the idea behind it. And I'm saying, don't do it that way, do it a different way. Like, allow some kind of follow-up, maybe him with a beta, you know? I would like to see these moves chained together a bit better. And there's also like a skill element in that. Okay, so that is for the most part Tech Mirio. I just also want to say, while I'm on the topic of Mirio, the way that it's special action, this applies to Rapid as well. I don't really like the way that this works, special action, because I feel like people are making use of this dash like too often. You no longer need to be at 100% to use it, which means people can go really far away, even if they've like used the special action recently. I think it's just a bit, you know, abusable, considering the absolutely massive amount of range on Tech Mirio, especially because he doesn't necessarily have the mobility that Rapid Mirio does. He certainly does if you're, you know, abusing the alpha mobility in the way that you can. But this is still a very powerful mobility option. I don't like the way that special action works in general. I feel like this is far too little ammo, and also the base reload speed of it as well is incredibly slow. I would rather that you can use it at any percentage like you can with this, but it is specifically about like using it short bursts because you don't have it that long because of small ammo limits, allowing you to constantly using it, not for invincibility, but for going through walls. Because, as I said before, I think that is the core of what Mirio is. Not an invincibility camera, but a go-through wall sort of character. Someone that plays around with the environment. To wrap up with Mirio, I think the design is cool. I think it's very clear from the parameters that we have available that there is a balanced character in here, and I think I've already made him. I've not tried him in any PvP. I just think all the parameters are well higher than they should be. So on the tier list, I would put Tech Mirio in like B tier, which is actually the highest tier listing character in this video. Which is kind of crazy to think about, because in terms of balance, he's way more busted. But I think the design implementation is generally better, and that is mostly carried by the design. Because the extra ammo cost was a parameter that I could change, I can confidently say that they had the right idea in that aspect of the design. They just didn't really follow through with it. Like, something happened where they just could not do it, and I don't know why. I don't know why that's happened, but I think there's a chance that it could be changed in the future, possibly in the upcoming season. I don't know. Bandai, King, get your shit together. And overall conclusions with the state of the game, with the state of all these characters, there is one common theme, and I think that is just a lack of quality control. The quality control this season has been really bad. And we've gotten 3 character releases, 2 of them being skill sets, whatever. I'm not going to treat them like they're different things, because they're still separate characters in terms of gameplay. But we've had 3 different character releases, and all of them are severely lacking in good quality control. And if this keeps up being the trend, well, I don't think people are going to be sticking around in the long haul. Longevity in a video game is very important, and you need to stop treating your player base like trash. This is what's happening. This is slop content. And I tell you what, Dragon Ball Genshin Squadron just released very recently. I played that, it is a ton of fun. It is clear like Bandai games can have very good quality stuff that people know what they're doing. We don't have to have this goddamn stupid content slop that this game has, because with like, you know, like the shit monetization, we're coming up to the second season. This is where we need to start heading in a better direction, because we are not getting there fast enough. There's so much that we need to go back and fix. So much needs to be done. So much needs to be fixed. And if it doesn't get fixed, like things in the past 2 years have still, to this day, not been fixed, that have been there since release. It needs to happen. Otherwise, people aren't going to continue playing this game. They're going to move on to something else. And I tell you what, those something else things are already here. Again, Gexshin Squadra. I'm going to be playing Sonic Racing when that comes out. I played that in the open network test. Really fun game. Do recommend. And yeah, that is the state of the game. When Sparking Zero released, people were going to say, like, this is going to be the thing that all of the Ultra Rumble players are going to go towards. And then that game kind of didn't do very well. I think competitively it was very bad. There was no reason anyone would need to make the shift. It wasn't a good market replacement. But Gexshin Squadra, I think, does have that potential. I played some Gexshin Squadra, and I tell you what, there were some people, even like Zen Clan people, in my games that I played. People that I recognized from Solo Queue, Ultra Rumble. The shift is already happening. I'm gonna check the Steam database right now for both games, Ultra Rumble and Gexshin Squadra. Right now, there's 1.7k people playing Ultra Rumble. If I go on Gexshin Squadra, it tells me 7.5k people. That is significantly more people. Gexshin Squadra is doing multiple times better than Ultra Rumble is right now. That is just based on Steam. So, as I say, content is slop, it's not worth it. Quality is what needs to happen, and if that doesn't happen, people aren't going to be playing this game much longer. And the releases this season is a great indication of exactly that. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. I'm hopefully going to be live streaming on my Twitch, probably Gexshin Squadra, and probably Sonic Racing when that comes out. Any support there is very much appreciated, and I will see you in another video at some point whenever I feel like it. Okay, bye bye!